If we could, I'd ask Councilman Fleury to lead us in an invocation, and I will lead us in the pledge, and then we will get going.
Let's stand, please. Oh, gracious God, we give you thanks for this day, and we ask that you grant to us your knowledge and peace and compassion for our fellow man and woman. Lord, we pray for the leadership of this city, and grant to us now your favor. For in Christ's name we ask and pray. Amen.
Amen. If you could face the flag and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. We could get a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bradford?
Present.
Mr. Everson?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Present.
Mr. Corbin?
Here.
Mr. Fleury?
Here.
Ms. Lynch?
Here.
And Mr. Bowman?
He is somewhere, but not in the room at the moment. But there he is.
I just saw him.
You want to say you're here?
Here.
All right. And tomorrow I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the administrative conference on Monday, March 23rd, and the city council meeting on Tuesday, March 24th. At this point in time, I'd like to ask any council members for any awards recognitions of distinguished guests, and I'll start off. I did notice former councilman Larry Ferdinand is in the room, so we want to say hello to him. And any other council members have any awards or recognitions? No? Seeing none. Mayor Tyler, do you have any awards, recognitions, or communications of the mayor?
Not today, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's see. At this point, tomorrow we'll have an opportunity for property standards. If anybody has a need for the property standards concerns, the revenue collection plan is...
Yeah, the tax report is back, waiting on a revenue report from finance. Hopefully we'll have that tomorrow for you.
Wonderful, thank you. What we've gotten so far wasn't as joyous as we had been. But we
Wasn't a typo?
Nope, that was real.
Checked.
And let's see, Mr. Bradford, will we have a surety bond forfeitures report? Where is Mr. Bradford? Well,
I believe we will, Mr. Chairman. He did forward you the bond forfeiture report a couple weeks ago. Or last
okay,
week.
so maybe we just got it earlier than
maybe
typical. So, I'll just hit. Yeah, I think the mics are on, aren't they? Yeah. Yes. Okay. There's no public hearing tomorrow, so we'll move on to adding items to the agenda. And where are we? Is there any legislation to be added tomorrow?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. And we don't have any confirmations or appointments to be considered tomorrow, so we're at the consent agenda. Let's see. Let's continue with items to be adopted under the consent agenda.
To adopt ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 51, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances on Sunday, September the 5th, 2015 for the American Legion Post 14 Flotilla End of Summer Event.
Okay.
Resolution 52, suspending the effects of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances relative to the grand opening of Bon Temps Coffee Shop in the Red River District on Saturday, May the 9th, 2015.
Okay.
Resolution 53, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10-190 and 10-192 and 6265A of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances relative to the Shreveport Symphony's Picnic Pops concert.
All right.
Resolution 54, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 relative to alcoholic beverage and Chapter 106 relative to zoning for property located at St. Vincent Mall for the annual Firecracker Run on July 4th, 2015. Resolution 55, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 relative to alcoholic beverages and Chapter 106 relative to zoning and property located at Stoner Boat Launch for the annual Turkey Trot on November the 26th, 2015. Resolution 56, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 102 of the Shreveport Municipal Code relative to the bus fare on Sport Tram buses for Thursday, June 18, 2015 for the National Dump the Pump Day celebration.
Okay.
Resolution 57, suspending certain provisions of Chapter 106 and Chapter 10 relative to alcoholic beverages on May the 5th, 2015 concerning the dispensing, sale, and/or consumption of alcoholic beverages at 1251 Dalzell Street, the Great Raft Brewing.
Okay.
Resolution 58, suspending certain provisions of Chapter 106 and Chapter 10 relative to alcoholic beverages at Taco Mania Grill and Cantina for the celebration of Cinco de Mayo on May the 5th, 2015. Resolution 59, authorizing the purchasing agent to dispose of by public auction of surplus vehicles, items. Resolution 60, declaring the city's interest in certain adjudicated properties as surplus. Resolution 74, suspending the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances on Saturday, May the 30th, 2015 for the Cross Lake Flotilla, second flotilla. So,
We do. And for those who were not at the Public Safety Committee meeting, we did, and I appreciate Councilman Fleury for having a meeting of that committee, and I'll let him update more and later on, but it was discussed about, we get a lot of these requests for exemptions from this, and so looking at maybe a formalized process that allows these under the code instead of having to exempt the law all the time is maybe a good thing for us to look into.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Are these somewhat similar? Because, I mean, most of these I saw as fundraising activities.
It's a very common practice, and as it was discussed in the meeting, a lot of times the ones that really aren't good are usually vetted by that council person before they ever make it to us. So by the time they really make it to us, it's generally approved. So we're looking at a way that might allow this to be able to move along quicker without having to come to a full vote of the council every time. But we'd still provide the police, the information that they need in order to protect the public safety. So, all right, and now we're at regular agenda legislation, unless there are any other questions on this. I see none. Mr. Crawford, can you proceed with regular agenda?
yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Resolutions on second reading and final passage, or which will require only one reading. Resolution 42, entering into a contractual agreement between the City of Shreveport and ALSCO relative to providing water and sewer. Resolution 47, authorizing the mayor to execute a donation agreement between the City of Shreveport and Nicely Properties Incorporated, hereinafter called Owner, and acting therein through Jeremy Nicely, manager for the private water and sewer main extension and related facilities to serve Norris Ferry Crossing Unit 8. Resolution 48, authorizing the mayor to execute a donation agreement between the City of Shreveport and Southern Home Builders Incorporated, hereinafter called Owner, and acting herein through Edward.
Gagne.
I know that's
Gagne.
Gagne. I knew that was a Cajun name. Manager for the private water and sewer main extension and related facilities to serve Riverbrook subdivisions Unit 3, 4, and 5. Resolution 49, stating the City of Shreveport's endorsement of Twin Oaks Investment LLC to participate in the benefits of the Louisiana Restoration Tax Abatement Program. Resolution 50, nominating persons for consideration by the mayor for appointment to the Downtown Development Authority. Resolution 61, amending the City Council rules and procedures to establish the policy for the format of the City Council meeting minutes, to delete the agenda items for Committee of the Whole. Resolution 63, supporting House Bill 216 to be considered in the 2015 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature relative to the hotel occupancy tax.
62.
Oh, I think we skipped 62.
I don't have 62 on my. Let me see what I got here. I don't have it on my printout here.
I'll read it.
Let's see.
60.
I have it here. I've got it on my hard copy. supporting Bill 769 filed in the 2015 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature, which creates the Shreveport Implementation and Redevelopment Authority. Okay. Resolution 63, supporting House Bill 216 to be considered in the 2015 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature relative to the hotel. This has got 63. Hotel occupancy tax. All right, we're back on track. Resolution 64, adopting the City of Shreveport's legislative priorities for the 2015 regular session of the Louisiana Legislature and to encourage all legislators to support these priorities. Resolution 65, supporting state legislation, House Bill number 386, which would extend the state commercial tax credit program of the State of Louisiana Historic Tax Credit Act.
6387. Bill number
387.
387.
Yes, ma'am. Bill 387. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Resolution 75, allocating funds to
Did
specific...
you have resolution 66?
I don't have that either. I'm just gonna read from my paper here then. Resolution 66, recognizing James K. Elrod for 50 years of dynamic and innovative services as president of Willis-Knighton Health Systems, and to thank him for the major role that he and Willis-Knighton play in the healthcare, public safety, and cultural needs of Shreveport and the Arklatex. Resolution 75, allocating funds to specific not-for-profit organizations from funds budgeted and other charges in the Riverfront Development Special Revenue Fund. Resolution 76, suspending the rules of the council and to consider the decisions. Suspending the rules of the council and to reconsider the decision in case number PSD 1400177, 2407 Portland Avenue, to place said matter on agenda for further action.
Okay, now I've got in the queue, starting with Councilman Corbin, followed by Councilman Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm trying to find the right one to ask my question about. Resolution 63, I've briefly read through some of the supporting documents. I know the voters turned this down, I guess, last year. This would allow the legislature would allow us to put it back on the ballot for a second time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then it changes the allocations a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Jenkins, followed by Councilman Bradford.
Okay, let me follow up with the lineouts in the document. Is that a change to the previous year's one, or is that an amendment that whoever's filing the bill from the 50 to from the 75 to 50? Is that where? I don't know who's bringing the bill forward in the House, and I don't know if our lineouts on the document are associated with that change or if that's the change from the previous year.
Yes, Councilman. Representative Seabaugh is bringing the bill, and it's changed from last year, so everybody's going to get about a third split. And the documents that you should have should be a letter of support from the local hotel motel association. So we have them in support, as opposed to last year we didn't have their support.
I understand that part of it, but on the attachment on our electronic agenda, it shows the line, basically an amendment to the document. Is that an amendment to the previous year's document, or is that an amendment from the way the bill was initially proposed by Seabaugh, whoever, and then it's been since changed?
It's an amendment to the current statute, because when it was passed last year, it was codified, and so it's a revised statute, and so now they have to go back and amend the revised statute. So they'll scratch through that, and it will basically amend that revised statute.
That's done by the legislative staff of the state, I think.
Correct.
That's, okay, so it's the state that's doing it, it's not us. Okay. And then question number, different thing, thanks you. I'm now on 75. Is that the recommendation of the Riverfront Committee?
Correct.
That came from the Riverfront Committee, yeah.
Okay. She's on the, you're a member of it, that's what,
She
okay.
made the motion to pass through the Riverfront Committee for introduction to the full council.
Okay, copy. Then 76, I have a little background on 76 and kind of why are we, what is it? I mean, obviously there's more to the issue than just reconsidering the decision. There's probably a reason why we're reconsidering.
Let me speak on that, Mr. Chairman. I think my computer unfroze. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna go to the-
I think that, and it's not just you.
Oh,
I know mine's frozen.
Memory.
I don't know if we can get some technical help up here, but I know I can't open any of these. So.
I'm moving so fast between them, I'm probably slowing
Yes,
everybody
but-
else
yeah,
down.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what's-
Yes, you
what's
get
happening. Okay.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, this 76 was being introduced because the gentleman, Mr. Ross, as you remember at our last property standard hearing, he had properties that he wanted to assume from another lady, which was under order for demolition through the district courts. Because of the inclement weather and everything, it was delayed by 10 days, which gave them time to execute the sale. And they did execute the sale the day of the hearing. As you remember, there was some opposition to amending the agenda to allow him to come forward. But the attorney pretty much cleared the way to say that because of the extension, if you will, before they have to go before the district court, that they could go ahead and execute the sale, and that happened. He's here, he has the bill of sale, he has the other documents. What I want to try to do here today is to bring that out of demolition phase, the demolition stage, so that he can go ahead and rehab this property. Not very seldom do we get into this situation where property is being into that stage that somebody wants to rehabilitate it, and he has that desire, and he has purchased it, which tells me that, for all indications that he's gonna do a good job and put it back on the market. So I'm asking that we will do whatever we need to do to put it back into our preview so we can somewhat clear this case and let this gentleman go ahead and do his remodeling.
Okay.
Attorney?
Councilman Bradford, I had a conversation with Ms. Farnell from Property
Okay.
Standards just a few
Okay.
minutes ago. Got some more facts on the matter. Apparently, the new property owner, there was a 10-day notice letter filed or transmitted on Friday. So the individual owner may not have received the letter yet with service on a green card, certified mail, notifying him of the 10-day notice. Proper procedure, considering the fact that the service document has not been received by the owners. Once they've received it, they have a 10-day appeal notice, but that needs to go to the First Judicial District Court. It would be more proper, I think, at this point for the appeal process to go as it does on its ordinary process to go into the First JDC, the First Judicial District Court, because they do have a 10-day appeal window per the ordinance to file an appeal or an extension of time to the First Judicial District Court. When we first talked, I was not aware that the notice had gone out on Friday, so they still have time to file their appeal with the First Judicial District Court.
Okay. Let me understand the process. Okay. And I'm not
Sure.
blaming anybody for anything. I'm just trying to get an understanding of the process. When the gentleman came before us and the previous owner, I tried to argue to let them talk about the process. And because of the time and the occurrences of weather and so forth, they still had time to, and you felt, to execute the sale.
That's correct.
And they did that.
That's correct.
There was some opposition from the Director of Property Standards, but yet you said, they still have time to do that. Now, they executed the sale that same day, and there was no other communications from anybody to him. He assumed that he was now in the proper standing to move forward after he have assumed the property. He has a bill of sale with him today.
All right.
And I'm asking, as we would as a civilian have the privilege to drop charges, is that not just within the same preview of this council?
The original decision allowed for, it doesn't interrupt the demolition process, but it does allow for the property owner to sell to another property owner.
Okay.
Once that property owner has made the original property owner made the sale to the current property owner,
Okay.
it interrupts that time period, the 10-day notice that you give for the first demolition. Now, at this point, the new property owner also is afforded a 10-day notice for demolition, which they are currently inside of at this point because they've not been, to my knowledge, have not been served
No.
with the certified mailing giving them the 10-day notice. But the proper recourse now, because the council has made a decision regarding the demolition, is to go to the First Judicial District Court as an appeal.
Okay, I
to,
understand.
to,
I understand.
to overturn, remand, or affirm the decision of the city council.
Okay, and I understand that.
Right.
Okay, but my question is that we made the order based on information that this property owner, the previous property owner was negligent. They had allowed the property to become a nuisance and unsafe and so forth and so on. The property was sold, and now we have a new property owner. And I'm just saying that we don't have the privilege to reconsider our actions and drop the charges and let him go forward with his motion. That's what I'm trying to understand.
The ordinance provides that you, as a body, once you have voted, that the next step is the appeal process. It's the First Judicial District Court.
Okay.
And now, as to a reconsidering of the city council's original decision, it's a policy determination. I mean, there is no prohibition legally to reconsider. It's not like the ABO standards, where it's dispositive. However, it opens a very dangerous, to me, in my opinion, a very dangerous policy determination if you were to do that. The proper procedure is to go to the First Judicial District Court for appeal. Again, from a legal standpoint, no, but from a policy standpoint, I think that it usurps the process that the city council has already put in place as far as demolition and appeals of those demolition processes.
I think what I'm hearing, and I understand the concern, is that it would make it sort of where no matter how far along the process is, the applicant would continue to appeal to the council. So it's almost like we would never finish our portion of the appeal process. Whereas what we do now is they appeal to us until we make this final determination, but once we make that final determination, it's then clear that the person they appeal to is the First Judicial Court, First Judicial District Court. But if we were to establish a policy of doing this, or if we were to make it known that we do this, no matter when we make a decision, people will continue to come to us after that and ask us to reconsider it. It's more like opening a bag of worms, sort of, that could go forward. If I'm and Art and Brian after that, if I could. I'm sorry, I didn't see the.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a policy decision. If you force them to file an appeal in court, and if they don't have the resources to do so, we're usually talking about marginal properties here. It means that we're going to spend the money to tear the property down, and then we'll probably never recoup those funds. Then we're going to have to probably maintain the property by cutting the grass every year, once, 2 or 3 times a year. So the question is it better for you to bring it back so that you can monitor it and even decide, whether or not you think that this is a viable project, that the guy has the funds and all of that sort of thing, and he's going to do it? Or is it better to just let the process go forward and then let the property be torn down or whatever and bear the cost of it? You don't have to take, if you decide to take this one, you don't have to take everyone that comes back to you. You don't even have to do this in the first place. You could have the appeals process administratively and then have them go directly to court. But you don't do that because you think there is some advantage to having these properties come before you and for you to look at them and for you to manage it and try to get them back into commerce. But if it's not worth it, you know, I mean, that's up to you to decide, but I think it is something to consider. What is it gonna cost if you don't do this? Is it worth it?
All right, and then I had, sorry.
I mean, I know I did start this question, but I'm getting the responses to my question. So I got a few more questions of different, but I can wait till the end.
No,
and
go
come back.
for it, go for
Okay.
it.
Let me ask one, and we may have already said this, what is the cost to appeal it? Anybody know what, is there a fee?
I don't know what the fee is, but it depends on whether or not you have to get an attorney too.
You don't have to, but does anybody even know what the fee is?
Do you know what the fee is, Drew?
$225.
What she's saying, she thinks it's $225. I don't know the court cost for that particular appeal, but I can find out.
Okay. Okay, and then my one other question on the item was a historic tax credit. That ordinance that we're supporting, that's obviously it's being proposed to be chopped out there at various legislators, and we're just saying we'd like to keep it in place.
But we are, that particular ordinance, there are about 13 or 14 different pieces of legislation that are proposed that would have some impact on the historic tax credits.
Right.
This is the one that, it's sort of a moderate approach that appears to have the most support in the legislature. So we're sort of going with the one that, that seems to have the odds on that it accomplishes the goal we want, but also seems to have support of moving forward.
Okay, and I mean, I'm not, the we, is the we the DDA? That's, who is the we that, and I'm not saying that it's a bad choice, who is the one that decided we're picking this one of the 13?
It is a coalition of organizations throughout the state that, so it would include people like the DDAs and then municipal government associations, different groups that, you know, have an interest in seeing what happens to the historic tax credits. And so there's sort of a working group that's, I don't even know if it's really an official group, but it's a working group that meets to discuss these statewide. And so that's sort of who provided some of the information to me to, you know, gather that this was the one that I thought that we should support.
I got you. So if we put out a resolution that said, and I'm just really semantics here, hey, we're in support of retaining the historic tax credit in any of the following versions of bills that do that, that could be a way to do it, or it's just not done like that, I guess.
It could be. I mean, I think
It's really a question for anybody that wants to answer. I don't know how you...
Yeah, I mean, I worded it this way because, again, I felt this was the one that seems to have the chance of passage and the stronger support base throughout the, you know, throughout different legislators who were, you know, have said that this looks like the way that it'll go, you know. But maybe I'm thinking it too far down the line, you know. But certainly I think, you know, what we're doing with this is can be applied to other, you know, other legislation should something else move forward. I mean, we're still expressing support for the continuation of historic tax credits, you know, so in a more general nature, I mean, it's still the same thing. You know?
Okay. I mean, it was just, yeah, I guess you could say it's a semantics question. How do we know that's the one that's good?
Yeah, and I mean, you're right, and I mean, I don't have any, you know, I wouldn't take any offense to an amendment that would, you know, make it a little bit more general in nature. That would be fine with me.
You mean just taking out the specific house number, just supporting state legislation which would extend, blah, 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 blah?
Now, I don't know if that would change advertising.
It does kind of broaden the subject matter past the title, but...
I mean, I'm not saying we have to, I was just saying, I want to make it clear that I'm probably in support of it no matter how it gets there.
Yeah.
And if nobody's going to push 216 for it, I'd hate for us to just get shelved and say, well, Shreveport doesn't care about historic tax credits.
Well, I'm completely open to that amendment. I mean, if that's something that that anybody would be interested in doing, I'd welcome it.
I mean, really, I mean, depending if the administration has a comment one way or the other.
Mr. Chair, Yeah, it's a specific piece of legislation. We would just like to see something in the form of the current historic tax credits and how they are applied and how we've been able to take advantage of them in the past stay in place. So offering up any legislation that had that type of language in it, we would certainly support.
Doesn't the one with the legislative priorities take care of that?
I mean, you have to ask somebody that knows about this stuff.
I mean, the one that's before you, the city's legislative priorities?
Yeah, we have a separate bill just expressing the support for the city's
Oh, and that's
legislative
one of the ones
priorities,
listed
one of
on
them
the-
being state historic tax credit.
Right.
Okay.
It says oppose legislation and any attempt to eliminate the inventory tax levied by local government bodies.
That's inventory tax.
Okay,
though.
That's inventory.
I think it's in.
That's, it may not be on there.
Historic.
No, it's
That
got
would be
film
the
tax.
That would be the place to put it in that one place.
I mean, and maybe that's the way to do it, to put it in there and just keep this bill, this resolution as it is. I'm okay with that proposal. You got my point.
That would work nicely.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
And are you responding to that one, or is something?
I'm responding to the previous question about Resolution 76. We had actually pushed a button to speak. And didn't-
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't have it on here, but
That's okay.
I remember it now.
From an administrative position and a policy and a operational implementation perspective, the passage of this type of legislation, with all due respect to Councilman Bradford and Mr. Thompson's comments, it creates a operational issue for property standards to, and I think city legal advised a while ago that not having an end game and allowing property owners to know that if they receive an adverse ruling from this council that says demolish your property, they are immediately going to seek a sale of that property, knowing that although they thought they had reached a finality and property standards thought they had reached a finality, now there are fears that they're going to try and sell that property. So that new owner gets a new audience with the council, and this could perpetually go on indefinitely. The first JDC and the policies that are currently in place allow a judge to hear and give that new owner proper hearing and due diligence to the fact that if they are able to support a position where they have the financial wherewithal, they are going to actually renovate that property, then the judge will stay the demolition order and remand it back to us at that time. And so there's a process in place. We're asking that that process remain in place. We see a myriad of challenges. If there is a constant being able to come back to the council after they have voted, whichever way they vote, positive or to support it or not, and being able to bring it back up time and time again at the dispensement of a new property owner. And that's not to say, too, that the current property owner, prior to the sale of the property, has to take some responsibility in revealing to potential buyers that this property is slated for demolition, and that I have an appeal process that I have not taken to the first JDC, and that once I transfer this property to you, you are going to be responsible for taking this and appealing this within 10 days. So I think putting some of that responsibility back on the property owner before the sale of that property is something that we need to look into before we send it back to the city, and then we, after a lengthy process, you have to remember how long this goes before it actually gets to council, how many chances we given property owners to rehabilitate their property before it gets here, and before you make a final decision. Now we're giving them not only one more step, but potentially an unending number of steps. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I now have Councilman Bradford, followed by Councilwoman Lynch, and then Councilman Corbin and Councilman Bradford again.
Mr. Chairman, I hear the argument, and I'm, to be honest with you, I'm kind of disappointed in what I'm hearing. Who would buy some property that's under demolition just arbitrarily if they don't have sincere intentions for the property? What I'm asking is very simple. We came in, with a heart to serve and more citizen friendly. This will not set a precedent. There's no way that this will set a precedent. We're talking about an owner who only been in possession of this property for 3 weeks versus properties that have been sitting out there for years. We can go on a tour of Shreveport, especially in my district and in other districts, and I can show you thousands of pieces of property that is sitting there waiting to be demolished, but yet they have not even been cited. But we have a citizen who has the intentions of taking a property that is about to be demolished. We're going to let him incur the expense of going to the courthouse when he can use those resources to help rehabilitate the property. If he would have had the understanding when he assumed the property that he was not legally prepared to renovate the property, I'm sure he would have done differently. But I'm saying as a city that is ready to move forward in the spirit of citizen friendliness, I don't see the precedence. I think every case has to be judged individually. And I'm in the public sector. Everybody in the public sector here who we don't judge I don't judge one patient on the actions or the behavior of a previous patient. Every patient is treated according to what is in the best interest of that patient and the ability of Willis Knighton Health Center at the time that they come before us. And I just don't believe that this is no way setting a bad precedent for the city and somehow creating a liability on the city just by allowing this gentleman to move forward. Now, the gentleman's here. You know, Mr. Chairman, can I ask you, Mr. Ross, can you come in for a second, please? I want you to tell us what was your understanding from the previous meeting on how you proceeded to get this property.
When I was here that day, y'all allowed me. Y'all said yes, sir. Y'all could go. You could go ahead and buy the property. And then, of course, I asked, "Was that all?" And everybody said, "You said yes. That was all." And I said, "Okay, I guess I'll get a letter in the mail like I have before when I bought a property." And of course, Miss Dorothy told me that she said I left too early, but I was told I was dismissed when I left. And they said something about this other. I thought when they said that the lady that owned the property, that she was supposed to get this thing done within, I think, 6 days because of the weather or whatever with the city. And y'all said I could buy the property. All right, well, I walked out of here and I bought the property. I mean, as soon as I walked out, I paid for that property and I bought it. All right, I went down and pulled a permit, and I admit I pulled the wrong address, but I got proof that I did it honestly in an email that was sent from her that was 2404, not 2407. But on my deed, it does show 2407, but I did not have my deed with me when I went and pulled that permit. I pulled the permit. I done tore out all the beams, replaced all the beams around the house. I was ready to seal it up. I cleaned up the property. I cut the trees. I hauled off all the trash. So my intentions, I'm supposed to have that property ready in about, I'm supposed to have it ready the 15th of next month. I've got a customer going to move in it. And of course, they come out and told me that I pulled the wrong permit. And I told them, okay, that's fine. He said, Gary, go get the right one. And then come to find out, I found out that the property is still on this, whatever it is. And, you know, if I have to go through court, I guess that's what I'll do. But to be honest, by the time I go through court and stuff, I'd have the property finished. And y'all hold me, it's just holding me up. And believe me, I have the funds because I just finished a house that I came in here that day and y'all seen it. And it was a lot, and it was, really and truly, it was a lot worse than the one that I'm on now. And, but like I said before, if I got to go through whatever, you know, I guess I will, but it's just a shame that I got to do that, and I was approved to go ahead and buy the property and get to work on it. So I don't understand this. Like I said before, the city, you know, it does not accomplish, the city don't accomplish nothing tearing it down. Just like that man said right there. You've got to keep it mowed, people trashes it. I mean, it's just, you know, I don't understand it. But I honestly, like I said, I asked for y'all's approval. Y'all approved it. I went and bought the property. I walked out of this place and bought that property. And I went and cleaned, first thing I did is cleaned it up. I mean, I didn't go pull a permit to clean it up, just to be honest. But I went and cleaned it up. I hauled off all the debris. That thing was packed with debris up front. and all in the back, and I hauled every bit of it off. I cut the trees and everything, so I just get it looking presentable. And I got pictures here where you can see where I done pulled out all the beams and replaced them. I put front door, brand new front door, brand new side door. I put windows in it, and I done cleaned the whole place out. And now I'm told I've got to stop. So I just don't, I don't understand it.
Chairman, let me finally say that, again, I'm gonna be prepared to offer this resolution tomorrow, but whoever served on a jury duty and be waiting for the trial to begin, and the judge come out and say, you can go home because the actions is not necessary because the parties have reached an agreement. And I'm saying this is akin to that. This is akin to us saying to this gentleman and instead of tying up resources in the courts is already saturated with cases, and we can avoid sending this case to the court by our actions and allow this gentleman to do his work. And and that's what it's akin to. It's akin to us reaching an agreement with the owner, rescinding it, and allowing that issue to be resolved by us and not by the courts. And I just think that's the right thing to do. I think it will show that we are city friendly and that we are serious about cleaning up our abandoned and dilapidated properties. Because I tell you again, I'm gonna send, because I went through Allendale the weekend, and we have so many dilapidated and abandoned houses that just need to be torn down, and that's not even been cited. So, but we got a piece of property that is ready, hammer and nail ready to be put back on the market in Shreveport on the property tax base, and we not willing to give this gentleman an opportunity to do that. And I just don't understand that. But I'm finished with that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilwoman
Ross.
Lynch, you're next on my list. Do you want to hold off for a
Yes,
sec?
but I can't even get up right now.
All right. Councilman Corbin, I have you after that.
Thank you. Two quick questions, and I think this gentleman can probably take his seat.
Mr. Ross, we
Take a
finished.
seat. You can sit down.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a quick comment on Resolution 76. I think that we have policies in place for a reason. If I'm not mistaken, late in 2014, we had a similar case that was asked to come back to the council. I don't think we decided to reconsider it. But it comes back to a comment that Mr. Crawford made. The original property owner of this house has had months, probably years, to do something to it, and they failed to do it at taxpayer expense because it's been in the system. And Ms. Farnell can tell us if it's been in the system 6 months or if it's been in the system for 6 years. But I suspect it's been a long time that it's been in the system. I think it's an abuse of the system in place to be able to sell a property that has a demo order against it because it's not fair to the person who buys it. The policy in place is to go to court and place your appeal. If everything that this gentleman says has been done, and the judge thinks that's significant, then the judge will make his ruling. But I've seen too many times in the last 4.5 years where we have made a decision about something, and 3-4 months down the road that comes back because somebody remembers that. And we open that door, and that door never closes back. So that's just what I have to say about Resolution 76. My next comment is about Resolution 63, the hotel tax. Looking at the top of that document, I see some of our area legislative coalition there, but I don't see all of our area legislative coalition. Do we have any idea if there is any opposition from any of our local elected folks?
I will defer.
Or do we not want to answer that?
No, I think
that's fine.
I
either
think
way.
I'll defer to y'all. I mean, I think y'all have an answer to that sort of, huh?
I haven't heard of any specific opposition. I think there's, I don't want to comment on rumors and certainly don't want to mention a legislator or legislators by name that we've heard that may not. But I think overall, and by and large, we've had great community support that we've heard that we may have not had on both sides of the river in the previous year, and great legislative support as well.
And if I could just comment, Mr. Chairman, is it the inventory tax that we're speaking about?
This is the
Hotel.
hotel.
Hotel,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
No, we've not heard any loud opposition.
Okay, let's see, now I have Art, followed by Councilman Bowman.
I just wanted to mention that I think you've been sent a resume by Mr. Phillips, and he's one of the names on resolution number 50. And want to be sure that you have that.
Yeah, we should have received that electronically. Councilman Bowman.
I think, I don't know if Ms. Farnell had said how long 76 had been. If she can tell me how long that we've been going back and forth with that, on that property, Ms. Dorothy.
He just wants to know how long the property is.
On the Portland Avenue property.
I'm just asking how long this has been in the air with 76.
Oh, we've been working with this property since 1995. We've always had to cite it for one thing or another.
95?
Yes, sir.
Sending notices and...
We would send notice, and most of it was about grass. Sometimes they would cut it. There were some occasions we had to cut it. They paid it, but we always had to send notice all the time because, again, this was an absentee owner.
Only 20 years.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Councilwoman Lynch.
Yes, I wanted to commend the administration for the legislative priority list that we have. I thought it was well put together. I think it covered, pretty much everything. But let me make sure. We're going to add to that the historic tax credits, right? General language. Okay. So we'll make sure. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And Councilman Bradford.
Mr. Jackson gonna?
Yes, resolution 62, Mr. Chairman. And I had an opportunity to look at that. Who can basically explain the great benefits of creating such a authority within Shreveport?
Yeah, I think maybe Stephen and Bonnie have been working on that very closely. This is for the background of, and I appreciate the opportunity to say a few extra words on it. This is one that has been in discussions for quite some time, and the city has taken some actions to get us to the point where we're ready to ask for the state to pass this. So this isn't something that just arose recently. It's something that's been a few years in the works. And the Shreveport Implementation and Redevelopment Authority is a recommendation of our 2030 Master Plan, our Great Expectations Master Plan, intended to help to encourage growth, development, and revitalization of our inner city and our sort of blighted and disinvested areas in our community. And so, one of the purposes of this legislation is to create an entity that is able to really assemble and clear title to and get property ready to be developed again, and then to once they've assembled this property, to be able to work with the development community to get developers to come in and redevelop that property. So we've seen very successful efforts that are similar to this in other cities in Louisiana, particularly in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge after the after Hurricane Katrina. There's some additional powers, I suppose, were granted to those areas by the state, and so we're asking for those to apply to us here in Shreveport as well. Giving us the same ability to use state law for property ownership that they were granted, so that we can have some of the similar. We may not have had a direct hurricane, but we've had a problem of disinvestment that is very serious to our inner city neighborhoods and to our urban communities that we need to really address and turn around the tides on. So this gives us an ability to do that.
Okay, and I'm going to hear from the other two, but when you say authority, powers seem to come to mind. What powers would they have that would be different from the power of the city council?
Absolutely. Well, I think y'all want to describe it. Maybe you can describe the makeup of the board as well.
Councilman, you were doing such a good job. Well, one of the powers that they would have is they have the power. I heard you talk about you drove through Allendale this weekend and you saw a lot of dilapidated, blighted houses. But one of the things that the redevelopment authority can do is it can help move those properties back into the tax roll. One of the best tools it has is the ability to get clear and free title. When you talk to developers, one of the first things they'll tell you is, I don't want to invest in this area because it's a lot of adjudicated property. And we'll say, well, go through the adjudicated property process. Well, just because you go through the tax sale or win the adjudicated property at a tax sale, that doesn't mean you have clear and free title. And so they'll get the land, but they'll take it to the bank, take their proposal to the bank, and the banks will say, we're not going to lend you any money. Or, and so it's a very risk. The redevelopment authority can serve as a depository of land. That's one of the things they do is mass land assimilation or land banking, which I believe is illegal, but mass land assimilation is what we call it. And they can dispose of that property with clear and free title. And so that's one of the greatest tools that it has. That's one of the things New Orleans has used to basically revive some of its areas after the hurricane. East Baton Rouge uses it. The board is set up with four appointments by the mayor. The city council has to approve all appointments. And then we have some specific appointments, one by the state, one by the parish, and the other one by the Department of Community Development. The bill requires that the redevelopment authority would have to submit an annual program of work. And basically what it is we don't want the redevelopment authority or an agency to become this breakaway or detached entity. And so that plan that they have to submit to the Metropolitan Planning Committee and to the City Council for annual approval has to be consistent with the master plan, and it has to be consistent with the annual action plan that the Department of Community Development submits to HUD every year. And so we want this entity to work together with the city as opposed to working apart.
So it's conditioned on the legislature passing this.
Correct.
We have somebody who carried it in Baton Rouge. Huh?
Correct. Representative Burrell, who's done a lot for urban development, inner city development, he's carrying the bill. And so he's been a strong advocate for inner city development.
So let me just try to imagine a picture, a timeline. If this passes the legislature, what kind of timeline are we on to make this happen?
Well, that timeline is basically based on the council and the mayor. Because I'll give you an example. Opelousas passed their redevelopment authority in 2008. Okay. They just started appointing members in 2014. What the legislation requires you to do is you have to come up, before you can start, they have to come up with a workable plan. Okay. You just can't start the redevelopment authority. It passes in June, and in July they're out saying that they're doing work. They have to come up with a plan and a proposal, and so it can't be haphazardly done. So that depends on, getting the board put in place. That's why we were very specific. We went back and forth with Attorney Glass and Attorney Bradford. We were very specific with and that's what held Opelousas up as well. They were very broad and vague in who could be appointed. We wanted to make sure that we had individuals who were appointed that had a vested interest in it, as well as we wanted to make sure we had some subject matter expertise on the board. And so by getting the board appointments kind of tighten up, that should help avoid what happened in Opelousas.
So that whole legislation includes everything as it relates to how it's going to operate.
Correct. It's a 40-page bill, all of 42 pages. And so Attorney Glass and Attorney Bradford and I and Ms. Bonnie, we've all read through it, and We did attach a summary to your e-agenda that kind of explains, kind of like a digest version.
So you feel, Mayor, that we are at a disadvantage because we don't have such an authority?
I certainly feel that we are. I think if we have the authority, I think we can be able to move ahead with, you know, particularly our inner city and urban.
Government.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we can move some of the blight.
And I would add to that, I would be very supportive of the idea of, you know, once the legislature is able to take this up, if we could create a committee on the council to help guide the actual establishment of this once we're given the permission to. Because it is something that, like you heard in Opelousas, some cities rush forward with it, and some do well, but some cities rush forward with it and they do it the wrong way, and it's not as productive as it could be. So I think we do need to give it some further thought. We've given it a great deal of thought, but we want to make sure that that what is written in that paper and what people have spent a long time researching and doing right is what ends up happening, and that we don't stumble over ourselves by trying to rush to market with it. You know, so I think it is something that we have a great framework for, and would certainly appreciate your support and participation in making sure that that framework becomes a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, one more item, and that's regarding the civic appropriations that is going to be proposed, Resolution 75. I sat in on a meeting on last Thursday, but I didn't have a vote to the recommendation that's going to be forthcoming. But included in the applications was the MLK CDC. And the MLK CDC, Mr. Chairman, is a very essential and vital institution in the MLK area. They do so much work. As you know, the MLK community is the largest contiguous African American community, maybe in the United States now that Harlem has been somewhat more diverse, and they wasn't included. And I'm gonna ask for an amendment tomorrow to include them in this appropriation. They didn't receive any funds last year. They are trying to, again, Ms. Rogers, can you come in for a second, please? I want her to just talk about some of the projects that they're engaged in.
Right, and I appreciate you doing that. We did have a request to speak from Ms. Rogers, but I received it after our public comments section,
Okay.
So that will be.
Let me cover that today, and tomorrow we'll avoid that. Okay. Yeah. And you've been, I know you've been waiting for this opportunity. The civic appropriations was delayed time and time again, and yet you kept insisting that you wanted to have a word.
If possible.
Okay.
Chairman Everson, City Councilwoman Stephanie Lynch, other councilman, Mayor Tyler, Mr. Crawford. We submitted for 2014 and 2013, and we had to resubmit in that year because at the end of 2013, I think it was December the 5th, when we actually received that notification, and that changed the process for the civic appropriation. And they asked us to resubmit. That process changed to more or less, in the narratives, you're constrained to 100 words, 150, 250 for certain sections. But we did resubmit. We got it in on time, ahead of time. And we did not hear anything in 2013. I think I approached you, Mr. Everson, last year at this time. As a matter of fact, to be sure that I was clear, it was February 25th, 2014, after that city council meeting, because I'd come down to talk about our streets and drainage issues, and I bought more than 120 slides. For those of you who were still on the council at that time, Mr. Corbin, Mr. Jenkins, I'm almost certain you guys would remember that. And I knew you said that we were being considered, that the numbers had trimmed down from approximately quite a bit because of the resubmission, I think.
It was the process. So it was, as I recall, because you're right, what happened was we went to a new process, and then we did it that year, and then at the end of last year, when the administration, was receiving proposals, they didn't they didn't ask for them to be in the new process again. So
They didn't honor our.
they didn't honor our new process. So it caused a bit of confusion. But yes, you're right. There was a new process where it went to a review of an external committee for a recommendation to the council. That external committee made up of granting agencies as well as representatives from the clerk's office and the mayor's office and several.
And at that time, I was told by you, Mr. Everson, that we were one of those final organizations that were received.
I don't believe so.
I think I remember correctly. It was after meeting, but we were told that we should be in for some funding. But the next week, our city councilwoman, Mrs. McCullough, called me and said they'd had another meeting and that we were not to receive any funding because we were going to get NIP funds.
Yeah, because that precludes, so, I mean, the reason I say I don't believe so is that I think one of the things in that new process was people are precluded from receiving money from the Civic Appropriations Fund if they received money from NIP, which is also originates in civic appropriations, so it was considered double dipping.
I never found it. When I went through, I pulled our old application, 2013, 2012. We reference it in this new application because you asked for some years. So we went back to 2011, 12 actuals, 2012, 13, and 2014 projected. But I never found
funding, correct?
I'm sorry?
You did receive NIP funding?
Yes, last year.
Okay, but not this year?
No, NIP funding is pending. We've not signed a contract for this year.
Okay.
We're slated to. But what I'm saying is, last year, we did not know when we were applying at the end of 2013 with the new date, December 20th, we did not know that if you applied for the Civic, that you could not get the NIP.
Mm-hmm.
That was not very clear in the new process and the procedures. I went back and I asked our office manager to try to find that. I never really found it.
Okay.
Maybe it's there, but I not found it, and I have the old application, new application. I have 2 or 3 applications with me. At any rate, make a long story short, we were expecting some funding last year, or at least the opportunity to say, if you did not, or if you did receive the NIP, you could not receive the Civic, or, just given the opportunity to let us know before we made application. And we did not know that. That was not clear in the new process.
Okay, well, we'll have to make sure that the administration this year makes because I believe they are intending to follow the process as it's on the books right now. It wasn't, like I mentioned, it wasn't followed correctly at the end of last year, which has caused some delay, and we certainly understand anybody's confusion with that. It was the same for us as being a little confusing because it wasn't handled the new way, and we had just gone from the old way to a new way, and then we get it the old way again, so it was a little confusing for us as well. But we have, received some confirmation from the administration that they are interested in following how it's written instead of.
We did reapply.
I hope I've stated that correctly.
We'll give it our best shot, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
I think we reapplied, and I think we did try to follow, for the most part, those same guidelines because our application is written almost the same way because we didn't get anything with except for a few updates on it. And it's just that I think that clarification would really help because a lot of our organizations, and I don't know what your records are. If you go back, you could pull the records and see which organizations have received the most funding from this down through the years, at least the past 4 or 5 years, because we've only been included with the civic appropriation since approximately 2011-12. That's the first time that we were even considered for that and received some funding. First funding was $15,000, second funding $20,000, 2014 nothing. So that's why we were trying to apply again, because there is a large project that we had applied for at the end of last year that we'll be able to get if we get the matching funds. We wanted to use parts of these funds for that. And
but wasn't that a capital project?
Yes, but we don't have to use those funds for the capital. The parts of our application would ask for the services inside, like the student services and the senior services that we provide every year. And basically, that would include similarities of what we do with parish sometimes. Wherever we have those gaps in providing, say, for instance, school uniforms, and it has to be for Title I school children, those kind of things. The tutoring services we're providing even right now, the senior citizen socializations that we provide each month, where they have a speaker, they have a hot meal, they play bingo, but it all is done in the auspices of the MLK CDC. Those are the kinds of things that we were talking about, and we really wanted some structural background to increase and broaden that tutoring services that we're talking about, because you're looking at the graduation rates at our local high school, and one of the grants that we applied for specifically spoke to that. So that's all we were asking for. With this, if you cannot provide for the capital, that's okay, because we're a large grant for the capital, but FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and supplies, and tutoring, human services for those students. That was the biggest impetus.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Let me defer back to the Councilman Bradford, since he was the one I think who asked
Yeah,
the initial.
and I appreciate those explanations, Ms. Rogers, and you know, my intentions was to, again, to make a motion to amend and add. Are you, and I keep, my councilmen and ladies are telling me that NIP or Civic is coming out the same pot, and that you couldn't receive both out of both pots. Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that. I do remember when then City Councilman Calvin Ben Lester was our representative, and he initiated the NIP funding. My understanding, the NIP funding set aside about $125,000 that was going to be directly towards our area. However, when it came to council meeting at the time, what I was told by him is that council asked for that to be divided up throughout all of the areas. Now, Ms. Moore is here from Community Development. They're over that project, and it requires, NIP funding requires that you specifically do a physical project within your community. That's one of the main impetus, and then in terms of making sure that we have clean communities. And we've always done that, for the most part, ever since our existence, is that we've always done that. Now, I do not know, I'm sure, I don't know, Ms. White or Ms. Fields, they may be able to find that information, but that was what we were told when Mr. Lester first initiated it. He did initiate it primarily for District A, but it did not go according to that. It was divided among all seven.
Okay. It just,
Yeah, I believe
You could
it
pull the
is.
records.
I mean, I don't have the legislation in front of me right now, but I believe that when we adopted those new guidelines for civic appropriations, that one of the things, and what I should say is it's probably a rule, not a law. It's probably a rule in the application, because I think the same is true of the capital cost. I think that I don't think that that's legally not allowed. I think that it's disallowed by a rule in the application. So this could be the same without having it in front of me. I couldn't say.
Are you talking about the resolution, you're talking about NIP or for?
No, the resolution creating the civic appropriation application process from 2012, I believe.
I have a resolution number 92 of 2012, resolution to establish a civic appropriations grant program, including guidelines for the allocation of funds to nonprofit organizations and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. And this one is by Councilwoman McCulloch. Is that the one you're talking about?
I think so.
This is it.
Okay, let me ask Ms. Moore a question, if you please.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask Ms. Moore a question.
I'm sorry.
How you doing, Ms. Moore?
Fine, thank you.
You are the custodian of the NIP funds.
I am, yes, sir.
What's the total funding allocation of the NIP funds?
About 250,000.
250,000. How do you what's the process you use in identifying who will receive those funds?
We do requests for proposals. We do it citywide. Typically, we have a criteria for who can respond to that RFP.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be community-based organizations, not necessarily a nonprofit, but with the idea of becoming a formal organization at some points. We have tiers, or tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3. Under tier 1, you don't have to be a nonprofit, but you have to have been meeting in your community and have a number of participants associated with that. In tier 2, you can be working towards your nonprofit status, and in tier 3, you're a nonprofit.
To your knowledge, Ms. Moore, are you familiar with the civic appropriation process also, are you?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay. when you look at, you know, and award a NIP allocation, are you aware if any of those groups also receive civic appropriation allocations?
Not typically, because we do the NIP prior to doing the civic appropriation. Sometimes the civic appropriations are approved in December, sometime after that. So we will submit our proposed funding to the civic appropriations personnel, whoever that may be. It may be Councilman Everson that requested or someone else, but we will submit that to them so they can compare them.
Are you familiar with the MLK CDC?
I am.
And could you tell me how often they get NIP funding?
I know that they've been getting it for at least 5 years, and they've gotten as much as $10,000. We have a cap on the amount of monies that we give for NIP. At one point in time, we could give up to $30,000. We were getting a substantial amount of money at that time. And at that time, we didn't have as many recipients. Now we've capped it at about $10,000.
I'm gonna, between now and tomorrow, I will review both appropriations and see if there are organizations that have been getting both funding. And I appreciate your statement, only because, again, the MLK CDC, I mean, it's just such a vital organization within the MLK community. They do great work with 15, 16,000 people being the only catalyst of generating the type of programs and activities that are there. I just want them to be, I mean, they're trying to do an office, but that's neither here or there as it relates to both fundings. Neither one of them will be designed for capital projects, but at the same time, just to keep at the level of service that they're providing, I would like to see them really, whatever is available to them, to be available, and they receive whatever is available to them. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, my last statement is going to be this. I started the Queensboro Neighborhood Association back in 1991, and that was before the riverboat gaming came into town. Each council district had the privilege, I guess, to request funding for their particular neighborhood groups. I remember Councilman, who was my councilman at the time? The insurance guy. I can't remember his name. Your district.
Talking about John Davis Stewart?
John Davis Stewart. John Davis Stewart, in 1991, helped us receive $25,000 from the city to help with our neighborhood associations projects. And we received funding constantly from the city. And then as we grew and added more services, we kept getting assistance from the city. Finally, we was able to get other resources from other areas. So I think it's good that the city assists neighborhood groups and entities that provide services that would benefit the city, that would be extensions of the city services, so that we can see where our system goes, and those are the type of projects I love to see. So I'm just saying that I don't know where those funds came from prior to the riverboat coming into play, but I just, and I said this from the very beginning, that we are a $500 million institution, company, if you will. And we sit here, and now we are over an hour talking about nickels and dimes, and then we allow, in my opinion, dollars and dollars go away in another direction. I just want to see us be more prudent and better stewards of taxpayers' money, and making sure that we are fair in our actions, and letting groups that we know have a track record of providing services to the citizens of Shreveport have that opportunity with our assistance to continue to provide those type of services. So let's, I mean, we're talking about, and we're going to get to it, because in the Riverfront Committee meeting, we realized that that fund had really depleted. And somewhere in our line, we're going to have to start making some hard decisions. But as we make those hard decisions, we need to also be more inclusive and not just look at, one spot on my arm when there's a big old, cancer in my back. So we need to be broad in how we move forward and looking at how city resources are being allocated.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And let's see, I do have a request to speak from Councilman Fleury, followed by Art Thompson, followed by Councilwoman Lynch.
Mayor Tyler, on this resolution 62, I'm not sure I understand how that's going to be funded. That implementation and redevelopment authority.
It's not defined yet. I don't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I was just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's not defined. It is proposed in the master plan that it would be funded with proceeds from the Shreveport Home Mortgage Authority that has additional proceeds in it. So that's what's proposed in the master plan. But this particular piece of legislation that we're voting on tomorrow does not tie up funding. What we're doing right now is we're asking the state legislature to grant us the authority to establish this. So that will be a continuing discussion of how do we want to fund it. The master plan does, like I say, have a recommendation, but we're not committing ourselves to that yet.
Okay, Mayor, one other thing, on that inner city, I'm not sure I understand. Does that go all the way out to Councilman Bowman's district?
You know what, I think it's designed for urban and inner city, but I'm gonna ask Stephen if he can address that, he and Ms. Moore, if she's still available.
Well, most redevelopment authorities have targeted areas. Our redevelopment authority is citywide, so it encompasses all, it's not geographically defined. So
say no more, that's what we want to do. Now,
Thank
one other thing, on resolution 76, I just want to call to the attention of all of you here. The Portland Street area has had a lot of hard times. And I spent a lot of time over in that area calling on customers, and they have made a lot of improvements. And I'm just wondering, and this, I'm not asking, I'm just making a statement, that if these people don't go to the district court, if they don't show up to district court and nothing's done, doesn't that automatically come back as a liability to us to have to clean it up? If they don't proceed to the district court, a no-show, does that not, I mean, they don't have the money for the lawyer, you don't have the fees for the filing, and they don't show up, aren't we in the same position as if we was to take it back?
You're asking if they choose not to proceed forward with an appeal, does the original decision of the council stands?
So it goes, we tear it down?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I want. Thank you so much.
Okay, Art, I believe you're next.
Stephen mentioned a summary for 62, and when I tried to pull it up, it didn't come up, but now it's ready, and you can refresh and get that summary that he prepared. And the other thing, Mr. Bradford, would you contact us at some point and let us know what the amount of your amendment is for the MLK CDC? The amount.
Yeah, my amount was going to be $10,000.
10,000?
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, next I have Councilwoman Lynch.
We're finding some more money.
Where?
I don't know, Willie just found some money. So my question is there money left in the NIP pot of money? Because I saw that list and I didn't see anything over in.
in the pot.
I'm just.
Typically, in a given year, we have 32 agencies. This particular year, we only had 24 to apply, and we were concerned about that, and we found that about 10 agencies were not aware of the RFP. So the reason why you have not gotten your list for this year, that we went back out and allowed those 10 agencies to apply. And so we should exhaust all of the funds for NIP this year.
So there may be some more things
there's some
added.
pending?
Yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
wait, what?
That might make you happier?
Well, you all don't have to approve all of those, right?
No, they don't.
I mean, it's a process. I mean, you still got to review the applications and make sure.
We have a very in-depth process. We have very specific criteria in the RFP, and you have to be aligned with that RFP. And if you're not aligned with that RFP, then that's our first threshold review. You're kicked out. And then after that, we rate and rank. Fortunately, over the years, we've had enough money to fund most of the organizations. You're typically only thrown out if you're just do not fit the scope whatsoever. And so we've been fortunate to have enough money to fund most organizations. However, it may be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. They don't all get $10,000.
All right, let me ask about the, what's the funding source for the NIP? Is that out of Riverboat as well?
River Fund.
Oh, okay, so, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it comes from Riverboat and goes to community development for the NIP program, and they administer it for us.
Gotcha.
It's a line item though in our budget that says 250 or 225. I can't remember what it was for community development transfer money for NIP. And then there's 25,000 for administrator to administrate the program.
So that's why you're
25,000,
saying it's
sorry.
almost like double dipping because it's coming from the same source.
Same account, yeah.
Same account. Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
And there are also some requirements for, like Bonnie mentioned, you know, NIP, you don't necessarily have to be a 501c3 to apply for NIP, though if you are, you know, it puts you in a category with other people who are 501c3s. But certainly some of the people who, you know, it's, there are some groups and projects that are more appropriate to be funded through NIP than through civic appropriations. And so sometimes, you know, some nonprofits that are getting funded strictly go through NIP, you know, and like we may not see that at the Riverfront Committee meeting because that application doesn't go through regular civic appropriations, it goes through NIP. So I just want to clarify that yeah, that's why we don't always know if somebody might have gotten funding from one to the other, because they're awarded at different times. Now this year, we're making this decision later in the year, and we know what's been applied to NIP now, you know, so that's different than typical.
I would add one other thing, civic appropriations. There, well, at least there used to be, I'm pretty sure there still is, 501c3 requirement or not, but there's an audited financials. There's some financials you have to present as part of your application. So I'm not saying her standards are less rigorous, but her standards are definitely different on the NIP side than what requires for direct civic appropriation.
Yeah, for instance, civic appropriations, an organization and to be eligible to apply for civic appropriations has to have been in existence for 3 years, and it has to have a board of directors that meets on a regular basis, and you know, it has some quality control requirements like that, whereas for the NIP program, it can be a community-based organization, doesn't necessarily have to be citywide, you know, it can, in fact, it's encouraged to be a community-based organization.
Out of all of that, both of you all said, do I have any more money? That's all I want to know.
You're going to have to ask Bonnie that.
I mean, really,
I
you
got
probably
you.
need to ask
Thank
her
you.
back there because it's coming out of one place.
Bonnie, we received an email list last week of NIP funding, so is that list not the complete list yet? There's still some out there?
I think we're reviewing about 7 others, so
Okay.
we'll let you, we'll give those to you shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had a question too about the Huntington. We talked a little bit about that, and Mr. Bradford, you were not at the meeting. You had a stand-in. So can you kind of tell us what the issue is with appropriating money for Huntington band?
There is some case law that has addressed whether or not a city or municipality can give to a booster of a school. Particularly whether or not that donation to the booster is for a public purpose. I can try and provide you at a later time I can provide you that case law as well. And again, another concern I had was whether or not the booster would be the proper recipient of those kind of funds, and whether or not that would need to go through CPSB. I believe it was for the purposes of Huntington and for them to take a trip with the band. Is that correct? If that being the case, then either way, Its most pressing would be the fact that I don't necessarily think, and the case law doesn't provide that that is for a public purpose for that donation of funds.
Okay, so your issue was about the public purpose,
That's right.
more so. Okay. Because I saw on some of the NIP appropriations that what they were saying they were gonna use the money for was some school projects. Have you
Okay.
seen that list?
No, I have not.
Okay, but there were some on there that were doing things specifically at schools.
Okay.
And so I'm not really sure what the distinction we're making.
I would need to look at the list, and what I'll do is I'll get with Bonnie and get that particular list and what the purposes were. I'll also provide you with the case law relative to that matter as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and let's see, I don't have any other comments, but I do want to just make a couple comments on my own behalf. Wanted to just mention the Riverfront Committee did recommend also these nominations of persons, and Art mentioned we received another letter of interest from one of the people that's on this list. But I did want to just call it to everyone's attention who may not have been at the Riverfront Committee meeting. These appointments are slightly different than our standard appointments in that the appointments to the DDA, the way it's set up is that there are 7 names submitted to the mayor, and then the mayor chooses 2 of those names. Which is just a different process than what usually happens, where the mayor selects a name and then sends it to us for confirmation. So it's sort of a reverse process of that. If anyone has any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them, but I did just want to mention that. Let's see. Any other? I don't think we have any other questions. So at this point, can we go into introduction of resolutions?
Certainly. Introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to April 28th, 2015. Resolution 67 authorizes the use of certain city-owned equipment by the Junior League of Shreveport and Bossier. Resolution 68 authorizes the use of certain equipment by the North Shreveport Business Association. Resolution 69 authorizing the use of certain equipment by the Department of Air Force Barksdale Air Force Base. Resolution 70 ratifying the use of certain equipment by Shreveport Green and for the Great American Cleanup. Resolution 71 authorizes the use of certain equipment by the March of Dimes for the March of Babies. Resolution 72 authorizing the use of certain equipment by the North Shreveport Business Association. And Resolution 74 authorizing the execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement with Get Up and Company. That's for the C.C. Antoine's 179th birthday celebration on September the 12th.
Okay, anybody have any questions about these introductions? If not, then let's move on to introductions of ordinances not to be adopted until April 28th.
Certainly, introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to April 28, 2015. Ordinance 24 is amending and reenacting Division 6 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Department of Information Technology. Ordinance 25 is amending the 2015 capital improvements budget. Ordinance 26 amending the 2015 general fund budget, appropriating the funds authorized therein. Ordinance 27 levying a tax of 19 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the city of Shreveport for the year 2015 for the purposes of paying principal and interest on the outstanding general obligation bonds of the city of Shreveport. Ordinance 28 levying various taxes totaling 17 and 65/100ths mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the city of Shreveport for the year 2015 in the amounts and for the purposes described herein. Ordinance 29, levying a tax of 8 and 64/100ths per mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the bounds of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport for the year 2015 for the purposes as set forth herein.
Okay, and now we are on to ordinances on second reading and final passage.
Ordinances on second reading and final passage. Ordinance 21 amends the 2015 general fund budget. This is for the district courts and the discretionary funds. Ordinance 22 zoning C 2015, an ordinance amending Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances, the City of Shreveport zoning ordinance by rezoning property located on the southwest corner of St. Matthias Drive and South Lakeshore Drive, extending 880 feet south Shreveport, Caddo Parish, LA, to be the same is hereby changed from R1TH Suburban One Family Townhouse Residential District to R1TH PUD Suburban One Family Townhouse Residential Plan Unit Development District with preliminary site plan approval. Ordinance 23 is zoning C 2215, an ordinance amending Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances, the City of Shreveport zoning ordinances by rezoning property located on the northwest end of American Way. Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, be and the same is hereby changed from I2 Heavy Industrial District to I2 PUD Heavy Industrial Plan Unit Development District with preliminary site plan approval.
Okay. And I have a question from Councilman Jenkins.
Skip, I'm going to postpone my question.
Okay. I don't believe that I've not heard that any of these ordinances on the table or coming off or anything, and no action there. So that brings us to property standards appeals.
And Ms. Farnell.
Dorothy.
I think she stepped out just for a minute.
Okay.
Chair will get her.
We'll call her up in just a moment. And in the meantime, did you have something, Oliver? Just not sure.
It's get it out, Oliver. Come on.
Can't do it.
No, can't do it.
I need to take it off the line here. I don't understand something, but it sounds critical when I say it, so I want to. Don't want to be critical today.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have 6 cases
Now
to
working me
present
over
to you
that
today.
day.
Our first case is in Councilwoman Lynch's area. Mr. Flushan is the owner, and he is present. Please come forward, sir. This is at 3932 Miles Street. The owner is present. This case, I'm requesting that the case be closed, and the reason why is because Mr. Flushan is living in the house.
Okay.
He's living in the house. He was here before, and he has received a permit that was issued to him. He's been working on the house, but he's living in the house. So what we have done is we are requesting that this case be closed. We have issued him today a court citation for this case to continue in city court. He does have instructions on what he needs to do to complete the rehab of this structure. I would also like to note that he owes $1,509.54 to on this property. And we have told him how he needs to handle that by setting up a payment plan with the city. But also I want to make a note on this. This is another situation that wherein a citizen purchased a piece of property from what I'm going to say from a slumlord. The property was purchased with no notification about taxes, with no notification about there being a notice of violation on it. And he's purchased it, he's moved into it, but we see a lot of this, and now he's very perplexed because of the fact that the taxes and all of these things are due, and he has to be the one to pay them. So I just wanted to make note of that. But I have given him all the information, Councilwoman Lynch, to take care of this, and he's going to set that up and take care of it, but I'm asking that this case be closed.
Okay, let me, before I make a
He's here.
motion,
Yes,
let
ma'am.
me, when did you purchase the property?
Last June.
Last
around 26, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and the 1,500, what was that based on? Was that yard cutting or what?
No, that's taxes.
Oh, the tax.
That's taxes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's city
We just
and
discovered that
parish
it
or
was-
just city?
I beg your pardon?
City and parish or just city?
This was city taxes.
Okay, and what was the purpose of the citation?
The purpose of the citation is because of the fact that he's living in the property. And because of the fact that he's living in the property now, we are citing him to city court because if the property is occupied, then we have to close it because we had it for demolition. He is rehabbing the structure. He is going to continue as an occupant to rehab the house, but it will be done with city court.
Is this the same situation that Mr. Bradford?
No, ma'am.
Just trying to see what's the purpose of the citation.
Because of occupancy. When we cited this, we did not, the house wasn't occupied. We didn't know that he was living in the house. Now that we found out that he is, that's according to the policies and procedures. When the structure is occupied, we cite that structure to court. We don't cite it before the property standards board. We only cite those that are.
So what is he going to court for? That's what I'm not.
He's going to court for the cleanup. There's a cleanup. There's grass. And he has to finish the painting of the structure.
So do you have to cite him to do that for those things?
Whenever there is a violation, yes, ma'am. We have discussed it, and that way, if he does everything that he's supposed to do, it will be canceled.
Who cancels it, the court or you?
We will ask the court to cancel it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what time period are we looking at for that?
I'm sorry. I beg
What time period?
Okay.
Is there a time period?
Well, his court date is May the 5th. He'll go in for an arraignment to plead guilty or not guilty. He says that he thinks he'll be able to have everything that was requested to be done. And if it is, then it will be taken care of at that time.
So does
If
the
not,
city
then
set the
they,
court date?
ma'am,
The city sets the court date?
we do.
Okay. So can you all extend that, give him more time? I would ask that you all give him more time.
Well, the way we do it, Councilman Lynch, is we do 3 weeks out. And I think that 3 weeks out is May the 5th. And
3 weeks out from what?
Ma'am?
Citation?
Yes, ma'am. Which has already been issued.
Okay.
Sorry, Seth.
Yes, we've already issued it.
He's asking to close it,
Yeah.
but it's still got all this stuff hanging to it. That's what I'm trying to get an understanding, because the citation is still active. You're saying to close it in terms of demolition.
I'm asking you to close it in terms of the demolition. It was never cited to this court for a care premise. It was only cited to this court for demolition. We were going to, the care premise and the debris and the trash and all, that's extra. This was cited here for demolition. So we're closing the demolition.
Okay. Is this the dead end of Miles, or is it the other direction?
It's up there towards, no, it's not the dead end of Miles, not towards the airport, it's coming back towards, you know.
Okay, gotcha. Let me say this. This is what my motion is going to be. Is to close the case.
Close the demolition, yes, ma'am.
To give him until June 1st, or first week of June or something like that, to finish doing whatever he has to do. And to waive half of the 1509.54. That's my motion.
Okay, I would second that motion, but I want to be clear. I want to be clear. The motion is second.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
Go ahead, 'cause I didn't
Mr. Thompson
Can I
just
hear-
told me that
Can I hear from
motion
Julie
was to
first?
waive taxes.
You can't waive taxes.
Can't waive ad valorem taxes.
Oh, well, scratch that. Scratch that part.
Yes, ma'am. And the other thing is this. When he goes, Councilwoman Lynch?
I'm listening.
Yes, ma'am. When he goes on May the 5th, this is only for an arraignment. This is not for a court hearing. So normally what happens is they push everything out for another 30 days anyway, so it will probably be June or maybe longer before they hear this case. As I told him, he will have a long time to actually do what he needs to do with this in abating it.
Okay, I don't know, this all seems a little heavy-handed to me. And I'm not sure, I mean, just to me. When you start dragging people in court and stuff like that, it makes me a little, you know, makes me a little antsy. So, I mean, if you don't have to.
We need to continue the monitoring of it. This is just for a regular violation that we would normally ordinarily do. And as I said, he will have plenty
more time to do things.
He will have plenty of time to do what he actually needs to do. And we are working with Mr. Flushan. We are actually working with him to make sure that he does what he needs to do. And he does understand that.
Okay, let me just add, I guess what I'm trying to get an understanding, when we have these cases and we give people, you know, extended time to do, you know, sometimes we add time and that type of thing, but that's not with court attached to it. That's not with court attached to it. So I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding the difference between the two. When we have people going to court and then others we just extend it.
That's because if the case is being adjudicated here at the city council, it is actually extended.
Okay.
This case now having been closed, we're asking for it to be closed because of the fact of the property owner is actually living in the house. We want to continue the case, but we are continuing it under a different jurisdiction. And this would be the normal of how a case for an occupied structure would be handled.
Okay.
And as I said, what we're doing is only an arraignment. There is no fees involved
like it's so simple,
in it.
But I mean, I've been to city court with a couple of constituents. I don't really like it over there. I don't like courts. I mean, you know, they have serve a purpose, but when you start saying arraignment and all this stuff makes me nervous. But, you know, I understand.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bradford, I guess.
Okay, you yielding to me.
Yeah.
Okay, again, this is confusing to me also. Okay, this gentleman, let me understand something first, prerequisite. If a person is living in a dilapidated, substandard house, do you have any purview over citing them for that? You do?
If a person is living in a substandard structure, we can cite them to city court.
Okay. Now, like the previous situation, this gentleman, correct me if I'm wrong, you bought some property that you did not know that was in demolition phase. Is that, you did not know it? Okay, you did not know it. Is there any mechanism we can put in place to where if there's property that's in demolition stage that a person before they purchase it would know that?
It's incumbent upon the owner to actually go through the correct stage as far as with a realtor getting title insurance so that he can be protected if something does happen. But that is incumbent upon the owner in doing that. Also, just like with this property, along with a lot of others that we see, a lot of people sell properties a lot of time that they don't even own, and I have to do further research on that. A lot of properties is sold just based on the tax interest only. I questioned him about it. He couldn't give me any information, so of course I'm going to have to look at that further. But even at that, if somebody, a lot of time people feel like they're getting a good deal and they're not getting a good deal because they have not done fiducial
I'm not
research
concerned
on doing
about
it.
the broader picture. I'm concerned about properties that are in your possession as relates to either cited or up for demolition, and that those properties change hands without the knowledge of the buyer knowing that, and then they find themselves in a situation to where they're in a code violation because they did something that they wasn't aware of. And I'm just trying to understand.
But it's still the property owner, whoever owns the property, it is still their responsibility when they purchase that property. It's
about him?
Any property owner that purchases a people's property, it's incumbent on the property owner to maintain their property.
When you buy a piece of property, you're buying all the liabilities and rights and assigns that go with that. And so I think that, you know, unfortunately what happens in a lot of the situations with the type of property that may have code violations on it is, you know, it may be being purchased by someone who maybe hasn't bought a lot of property before, and maybe hasn't been to a formal closing and doesn't, you know, may not be aware of all the title research that's required to understand that you need to do that title research to know that you're buying something that's actually owned by who's selling it to you, and you know, that it doesn't have liens or encumbrances on it, because when you purchase property, you're purchasing those things too.
No, Mr. Chairman, I understand that, but listen, I got a brother-in-law who got some houses on Moore Street he'd like to sell somebody, okay? And they are not incumbent, okay? But these properties that are under your jurisdiction as it relates to, they have been cited and up for demolished, and then that should be somewhere there, that should be a red flag somewhere where the purchaser is being warned that you are about to purchase something that is going to be in litigation. I mean, that's not possible.
Okay.
Tell us. They don't always tell us they're going to
We don't find out anything when they are purchasing, and when we find out that it's been, we find at the last moment that it's been changed. Property has changed hands. That's why we have the 10-day notice then. If you purchase the property, everything that has been done to that property, everything attaches. So when we find out a new owner, that's why that new owner has 10 days to appeal it to the next jurisdiction so that they can get some relief, some extension.
I'm understanding all that. I promise you I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
But all I'm asking is that if you put a piece of property up for demolition, could there be something forwarded to the tax assessor, somebody to say this property is now under demolition?
We file everything.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
believe
Can we let Julie
Dorothy
talk?
is assuming y'all know, I'm pretty sure
Yes,
this is correct,
I'm sorry.
that they file a notice of the demolition in the property records at the courthouse.
Okay.
So if someone bought the property and checked the title, they would know that.
They would know
I
that.
think what she's trying to say is some people don't check that, but I think that's what you're asking for.
That's what I'm asking.
Is we put something out there so people will know, yes, we do.
Okay.
I misunderstood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everything, and everything that we cite is filed in First Judicial District Court. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Everything we do.
All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
Apologize.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the floor right now?
We're gonna close it. Close it.
That's the motion? And
Supporting the
there's a
proposal by
second.
property standards.
And that is a motion. Let me make sure I'm restating it correctly. Motion by Councilwoman Lynch, seconded by Councilman Bradford correctly.
Yes.
That is to close
That's
the
it.
case,
Period.
and that's it. Okay. So that's our motion.
Y'all got me sweating.
Mr. Bowman?
I'm in.
Mr. Bowman?
Okay, here you go, Mr. Fushan. Give you my card.
Our next case. Our next case is in Councilman Bradford's area.
Oh, my.
3815 Cornell Drive. All the taxes have been paid. This was filed back in March the 14th. The owner has replaced the roof. I don't know if he is present. I don't think he is. The owner has done quite a bit of work. He's replaced the roof sheeting. He's doing the ceiling. He's doing the joists. We would ask that this case be continued because he's done a significant amount of work. He just needs to replace the bricks, the fascia boards, the windows, and some other things to this property. So we would ask that the property be continued for 60 days. He knew to be here, but of course he's not here.
That's a move.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilman Bradford, seconded by Councilwoman Lynch.
Can you click me yes on that, please?
And that passes unanimously, I believe. Did I see that correctly? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go back to me.
Send it right
nobody
back.
back to jail. Don't send nobody to jail.
Ping pong.
Not for it.
Oh, wait a minute. We had that person?
Okay, our next case is in Councilman Oliver Jenkins' area, 354 West 75th Street.
Oh, that's, whose district?
In Everson. That's
Got my name on here.
354 West 75th?
If it's West 75th, it should be Stephanie.
Stephanie? Okay, we've had these changed over. Okay. Councilman Lynch?
Woman.
This is 354 West 75th Street.
Excuse me, Miss Burke. Councilwoman.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Lynch, this is 354 West 75th Street. The owner is present. She has done a lot of work to the structure. Beams have been replaced. What we have asked her to do is to remove all the rotten wood, complete the siding and the painting, replace all the windows and the window frames, and maintain the care premise and grass. She owes $60.01 on taxes, and we have discussed it, and she states that she's going to pay this on tomorrow. And we would ask that we would continue this for 60 days, please.
So moved.
Second. I got a motion by Councilwoman Lynch, second by the chair, to continue for 60 days.
Mr. Chairman?
It looks like a 6-1 motion passes.
Who voted against that?
Oliver did. Probably not on purpose, but.
Pushed it.
He meant yes.
I mean, yes, listen, I'm sorry.
Our next case, Councilwoman Lynch, is 719 Argyle Street. The owner is present. She is continuing work on the house. She has secured it with burglar bars, replaced the door and rotten wood, and we're asking now that you would give her 60 days to continue the process of rehabbing the structure. She owes no taxes on the property. All of them have been paid. And we would ask that allow her to continue with the rehab on this structure.
Is that enough time? Put that back. Okay. Let me look at the picture. What all needs to be done?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, that's the
That's not
incorrect
the
house.
house. Is that the house?
No, ma'am.
No.
This is it, right there.
She has done quite a bit of work so far,
What all needs to be done?
as far as the burglar,
Just one seal.
How long did it take to get it up to this, where it is now?
she was here, what, 60 days ago? She was here 60 days ago.
This the one that had the graffiti and, well, we're not, okay.
Yeah, that's
If you
been
go-
removed.
Miss Marshall,
Yes,
are you okay with the time period, or you feel like you need more time?
No, I feel like that's enough time. The guy that I had working on it at first, Wilson Contracting, he ran off with my money. So I'm having to go to court with it, but I've got somebody else working on it. But, I mean, it's a lot of rain that's been going on is what's stopping, you know, a lot of the work. And what I wanted to say was what Councilman Bradford and Councilman Epperson was talking about. I'm one of those that bought a house that didn't know that the taxes and the city, you know, was all involved in this. And if there is some kind of way that we could find out besides, you know, this is my first time buying a house, so I wouldn't know to go downtown and look at the title to see if it's clear or whatever. I mean, we don't do that when we buy a car. You know, I know we test drive it, but, I mean, I didn't know if any liens or if anything else was on the house or whatever, but, I mean, I paid all the taxes, I got some work done to it, and I'm trying to finish the work that's done here within the next month.
So was it just like a cash sale, or
Yes, ma'am, I
you all
bought from
didn't
a
have
lady
the
that I
title?
was working with.
Okay.
And her husband had passed away. And, I mean, I don't know if they had been sending her, well, I found out later that they had been sending her letters. But after I bought the house, that's when I got a letter from Miss Cornell, and I'm like, I didn't know all this was going on.
Right.
And then now I've got time frame to get stuff done. You know, and I'm a single parent, and I manage for Walmart, so all my money is going into this house. So, I mean, I don't have no intentions of not getting it done.
Right.
I mean, that's what I just want to let the council know, that my intentions are in this house.
Right, right. So you kind of keeping on a tight leash, Miss Farnell.
We just want to keep it monitored, and as she's making continued progress, we will continue to give her time.
Let me say, and I can appreciate that, but I certainly want people who have put the type of effort that she has put into, especially under the circumstances that we're being, you know, I don't know if they need to be on as tight a leash as, you know, people that we may have issues, you know, some trouble out of over and over and over again. So I just want to, I just like some of these to be construed liberally in estimating how much time that they may need to do this, especially when there are taxes involved and people didn't know, and you know, it takes a lot to put into a house. Just keeping it up and remodeling your own, it's a lot of money. So
That is to me back with.
We try to work. When we find out, a lot of times they'll come into my office when they do find out. We do try to work with them, and as I tell all of them, it's a matter of, as long as you show significant process, Property Standards is going to continue to work with you. Continue to work with you. I know it seems like short lease, but that's for a reason, so that we give them 4 months and then we go back and find out the property, nothing has been done. So it's for protection for everyone, but we do. And I always, just like with her and anybody else that I find out, I always tell them, you have to make sure that you check the property, because sometimes when things seem like it's a good deal, it's not always a good deal. And that's why we put everybody on notice and file everything. But again, that's something that she, you know, but we do try to work with citizens. Yeah.
You do got to understand, for the last 2 months it's been raining. So it's kind of hard to get this house up off the ground, you know, and do the work that it needs to be done because of the rain and all the moisture.
well, that's what I'm asking. I want to make sure, because you're going to have to come back down here in 2 months.
I mean, it's gonna be about a month before it dry up real good for me to get up under there, you know.
Okay. Well,
What do you suggest, Councilwoman Lynch?
I think I'll feel better with 90 days.
Yes, ma'am, we have no problem in changing that to 90 days, ma'am.
Members for that, to give her 90 days.
Oh.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you.
I thought James had sort of said he would. So we've got a motion by Councilwoman Lynch to continue for 90 days. That's seconded by Councilman Fleury.
Mr. Goldman?
Woman.
And that motion passes unanimously. And Councilman Fleury, did you have something
I
else?
withdraw my question.
Okay.
We're now at 618 Argyle, Councilwoman Lynch. This is another case wherein this is Mr. Robert Joseph.
10 days. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Councilwoman Lynch, this property, we've had it up for demolition, and I had asked that the house could be demolished. I've talked to him, and I've talked with neighbors about this house. I have agreed with him to continue this for 30 days, and the reason why is because in talking with neighbors and everybody, he has been working on everybody else's house on Harrison Street, even the young lady that just left, instead of working on this one. There's a lot of things that have to be done. So I asked him, told him 30 days, we need to see something. Replace the seal, paint, do something, but this house, nothing has been done.
Okay, so move for 30-day extension.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Lynch, seconded by
Oh, you don't want my card, Mr.
Councilman Fleury.
Joseph? Thank you, sir.
Votes are in, and motion passes unanimously with one absent.
The next case is a bill dispute in the Councilman Efferson's area. This is 333 Herndon Street. This is a case wherein the owner is disputing the bill. Property Standards sent his name is Wilson Canizares. Mr. Canizares did file an appeal with the Property Standards Board. They gave him 90 days. This was March the 18th. He had 90 days to rehab or demolish the structure, file an appeal. That was not done. And when we talked to Mr. Canizares, we explained to him that we could not do anything unless he filed the appeal with City Council. We did all of the legal procedures. The house was demolished. There is a bill. He is disputing the bill. He is present. I believe that he was supposed to have been here on last council period, and he did not come, but Mr. Canizares is here today. And as I said, there was no appeals filed on this at all.
My name is Wilson Canizares. Let me tell you, it's a pleasure to meet all of you. It took me such a long time to find out that in order to be with you, I had to find you. And it was very difficult. I've been trying to get, to let you know the first time I came over. You gave me the opportunity and delayed the demolition, and you gave me the opportunity, but I didn't know that I'm going to run into medical problems. I have 2 operations in my legs 2 operations in my mouth, and the last time that I canceled this, I had to run to the dentist because they left a piece of my gun inside and they had to correct it.
The title is correct.
I try, as soon as I get off from the hospital, before they demolish my property, I tried to call. In fact, I went to the place that on Texas, and I sit down for about an hour in that place, and one of the officers worries because I was out of the hospital to let you know how I am, so you don't think I'm lying to you or anything. And the officer says, "What are you doing here?" I'm saying, I'm waiting till the office open. Oh, I told the officer the problem, and he, since I couldn't even talk, he called and make an appointment, and he says, "Mona is going to call you." I said, "Okay, thank you," because that's important to me. I like to be responsible in my actions and do what I promise, because that's one of the things I learned from all of you. What happened? Mona never called me. I call again and call again. And I said, "Mona, what's going on?" "And you're going to be my witness because you know that I'm bugging you." So I asked her name, and I have her name. Her name is Mona. I don't even know the lady. Finally, I walk into my, in fact, I even called my Mr. Fossey. I said, "Yeah, Mr. Fossey." I said, "Mr. Fossey, I'm working on my property. I'm cleaning it up, all the trees around. I put a new porch, a new front porch. I put new wire. I put new sewer line, water lines. And of course I destroy it because I want to do it better, like it's supposed to be. You know? Coincidentally, one day I appear in my porch and I see a guy, a big guy. I just said, he might need some help or something. I approached to him and I said, "Sir, may I help you?" He says, "No. You don't need to be here." I said, "Sir, this is my property and you better move." So he says, "This property is off your hands now." "Why?" "It's off my hands, but at least let me know why." You know? So according to what I heard from them, is he was a contractor, and in order to find them, I had to go through a lot of phone calls, a lot of places, and waiting for a call and waiting for a call from there till right now. How have I solved the situation? And I wish I could be them, the guilty ones. I have a problem with and I want you to see it. And in fact, right now you can even see the operations of my guns. You can see problems on my legs. But I was trying to solve, no matter what. I was trying to find somebody, you from the beginning, and I couldn't find you. And in fact, one of the ladies that used to live in that place grabbed me and said, "Mr. Wilson, I want that bathtub from that house because I grew in that house." And I said, "Lady, I'm going to change the bathroom, but you are welcome to have it because it's a big thing to carry out." So when I find out, she went over and she told me, says, "They're demolishing your house." I went down there and that was a fact.
I mean, unfortunately, Mr. Cannavaros, it looks like there was. See, I'm trying to. look for the order that this happened. It looks like it was originally a hearing at the Board of Appeals for the Property Standards Board, back in on March 18th of last year, a little over a year
So
ago.
that from there on, I came looking for the problem, trying to talk to somebody of you, and I couldn't find. And instead of, I've been trying to talk to them, and this lady says, it's too late. You could have offered them. You can tear down the house. I said, I did. Oh, he said, no, they cannot do that. They should have given you the chance. I went to the lady and the gentleman, and I told them. And she says no, and he says, she even got up, sitting down, and said, no. Okay. They deny me everything that I want to do. I couldn't demolish my own house. And then seemed like everybody denied me, so I went to what the lady says. Well, I told her there's nothing I can do, so she says, go to the mayor office. And I guess I went to the mayor office, and the mayor, the lady, which is fantastic.
When was this?
Oh, just about, I think about a month or something like that.
So this was after the building had been demolished?
Or 2 months, it's in between 2 months and a month. Because also they want to call me and they never call me. Everybody promised to call me and they never call me. My phone number I gave it too many times, and nobody used my phone and tell me, here it is. So finally, from one of the assistants of the mayor, they call me early in the morning at 7:30 or something like that, which I say, thank you very much, something. Let me know what I gotta do. But then that was too late. They ordered demolition. They didn't allow me to demolish myself.
So this series of...
And the only thing is I needed to come and tell you what I want to do, so you can tell me whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. That property I bought it in $7,000, and that's what I found later on through the help of a lot of people from here. I bought it $7,000, and the lady says, look, that property up there, go and check on the government office, and those lots sell for $100,000 to $3,000. So I came to them and offered them the $3,000, and no, they say $6,000. I said, let me think about that, and we're going to call you. And I wait for the call, so I had to come back and force myself into the office and say, look, I want to talk to you.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused here, and I'm just trying to follow. So you said that you didn't. You said you were having a hard time getting in touch with anybody to answer your questions, but you were able to make it to the Property Standards Appeal Board to appeal the case, and so did you understand at that point when they gave you 90 days that you had 90 days to do that?
Yeah, and that case you could say, I'm not trying to apply to ignorance, it's just that the circumstances of the time with my hurt. I was in a situation that I was thinking as Arrivederci Roma, and but I'm okay.
Well, but then it looks like, they had looked to, after the 90 days had gone through, they did another inspection, and it looks like they did a significant amount of research, and then 3 months later, in early October, it says here that you appeared in the office to discuss the demolition before the demolition happened with the director and the assistant director.
Yes,
So did you?
it's because I haven't been able to talk to no one. as the lady herself.
But at that
or-
point, you were able
or
to get
him.
in there, and how did
I
that
tried to get in
conversation?
touch. I had to come in without an appointment to them and say, here I am, my name is Wilson, and I want to deal with the situation. And one of the reasons I'm trying to deal is because I do not want no problems. Simple as
Okay,
that.
well, let me hear from Terrence and Dorothy real quick about that meeting in October.
We've met about 4 or 5 times. The no is for the decision-making after the appeals board. He has a copy of the letter right there that gives him the address to this very building to tell him where to come. It was a simple policy and procedure thing. We can't make the decision for you. You have to go to the council. So, and that's basically why we couldn't tell him that we would cancel a bill or do anything. You must appeal it. And 4 or 5 times we had to tell him that. So it's not that we had pleasant conversations, but he never made it here. As a matter of fact, I think he was talking to you when he should have been here.
Let me say that what he was, we talked to him on several occasions, and when he would call, we would tell him what to do and ask Mr. Canizares, get back with us and let us know. He never got back with us. Now, when the council, when he was supposed to have been here 2 weeks ago, he did contact me because he wanted to talk to me first before coming here. He said he didn't get his letter, maybe he didn't. And I talked with him at that point, and as I told him, I was trying to explain to him that I could not cancel a valid bill. He wanted me to, and that was the reason. It wasn't just a no, it was that I did not have the authority to cancel a bill that was valid, that it had to come before the property standards. But we had 4 or 5 different conversations
So tell
on
me,
this.
because this is unusual, this is a bill dispute, it's not like a typical case that would come before us. So I'm sure he's asking for the bill to be waived or some portion of it to be waived.
He's asking for the total bill to be waived, and I could not do that.
What is
As
the
I said,
total
it
bill?
had to be before the city council.
How much is it?
The bill is $7,216. That was for the demolition of 2 structures.
No, the garage in the main house?
Yes, sir.
And so what is his remedy after this? I mean, I don't think we can, I don't feel comfortable canceling real expenses that were incurred by taxpayers, because if he doesn't pay it, then we all pay it. And so somebody's paid it, the expense has been made, but does he have an opportunity to appeal that somewhere else? I mean, is there, if he feels something was done unfairly, does he can he appeal it to the courts or something?
A bill disputes come before the city council. He can, I would have to refer to,
It would still be an appeal, just like any other appeal to
yeah.
district court.
the district court.
Yes, so it could be appealed to district court?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But that was the only thing, as I told him, and that was the conversation throughout, in that I cannot, it wasn't that being mean, because I never was, it was just the fact that I don't have the authority, and that's what I kept telling him. I don't, we talked, but I don't have the
It's
authority,
just
and that's
like
what it
before I
was.
even come over here and try to find out I should come, I found out through the major office secretary that you are my counsel and you were supposed to help me and do all of that. And also listen to the problems over here. You know, the only thing people like me are looking for an opportunity to do better. And situations like what happened to me because of her, all of you ought to help, because it's not helpful for the person that is in trouble and ends up you put more trouble. And according to what I understand,
unfortunately, I mean, while I think you do seem like a very nice guy, and you know, I'm not mad at you, and I don't mean to express any, ill will, but you know, unfortunately, you didn't do better for the property. I mean, the property is gone now because you didn't follow the policies and procedures that were laid out before you. And so I hate that that happened. It was a very nice looking house at one point, and you know, I'm sad that it fell into disrepair and that it's now gone. I mean, it's another missing tooth in the smile of that block now, you know, and so it's a shame. I hate that it's been demolished. You know, but at this point that work has been done and that cost has been incurred by the taxpayers, and I don't think it's fair to ask the taxpayers to pay for something that wasn't their mistake. So I'm going to make a motion to uphold the decision of property standards, and you'll have the right to appeal that to the First Judicial District Court. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
And so we've got a motion second and discussion from Councilwoman Lynch had actually clicked the speaker queue as well. Did you?
I just wanted to know, is this the big guy he said told him no?
What?
The big guy that told him no? You the big guy?
No, no. I'm not the one who came.
You're not the big guy?
Not the contractor.
Oh, okay.
He's a big guy too, and he get up on the
He is a big guy, but that wasn't the one. I was trying to get this witness identification right. That wasn't it wasn't him.
He says second time no, when I went to his office.
Oh, to his office.
Yeah, he was not at the property. According to what I understand from them, that was a contractor. And in fact, I didn't even know that the contractors steal the material till looking for that, and this lady informed me because she is on the real estate agents. I went by after. He says, no, what can I do in 5 days to get material out of my house?
Sorry, Councilman Bradford has the floor.
Yeah, order of the day.
Thank you.
No, and I support the motion, but can he be given the same consideration as to provisions in a payment plan?
Councilman Bradford, we spoke to Mr. Canizares in depth about the payment plan, and he didn't feel like that he should have to pay anything. Okay. That's why we're here. We've made other options to him. He didn't accept that. Now, he made today, but he said no.
Mr. Chairman, order of the day. I call for the previous question.
Great. All right. So we have a motion, and for some reason this screen is out now, but we have a motion by the chair, seconded by Councilman Jenkins.
Yeah.
And everybody in favor?
Uphold property standards.
Uphold property standards. And it looks like that passes unanimously.
And all I ask is that when this is over, just counsel with him again and let him know his options.
Yes, sir.
And offer him how we can, make this easy for him.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And before you go, can I just make a statement, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I was serious when I said that as I toured Allendale, I saw just numerous properties that I considered very and very bad dilapidation. Okay, I mean that should be cited. I was a hearing officer for at least 8 years, so I know the process. How many on a weekly basis? How many houses do you think your inspectors inspect in site? Just give me a round ball figure.
Just on houses.
I'm sorry.
You said on houses.
Yeah, just on dilapidated care premise issues.
We probably do cite maybe 100, 150.
100 a week?
No, a month. I mean a year, for the whole year.
Are you? And I'm trying to see, and I know and I toured the 2 T-bone initiatives. The houses, and I would love to ride with somebody and just look at some of these properties. What's the criteria on citing some of these things that's caving in, the roof that caved in? How do you identify what you're gonna cite?
Those, you want to answer? Yeah, because
the question
If I
is,
see a house with a roof that's caved in, I'm gonna cite that house.
okay.
I mean, but what specifically?
Well, I'm saying that you don't have to go far in Allendale, and I will again reiterate that District A first, District F second is probably the two districts that has the most,
Don't forget District B.
well, you come up there. In District D. But only because those communities are the old neighborhoods that has a lot of transition. But I can, you know, and I know you spoke to Mrs. Margaret Brown on Looney Street. Okay. I mean, just going down Looney Street, I know there's at least 10 properties that could easily be cited. I mean, there's some properties there that even have the notices on them, you know, about 4 years ago. I mean, how do you follow up on that? I'm trying to get us on track that we all, some of us, you know, campaign on that we want to clean up our city.
One of the things that happened when we're talking about demolition,
Okay.
we are responsible for removing all of the utilities from the structure. Sometimes when you see a demolition candidate that may be standing for longer than what it should be, we're having issues with utility companies. They have, even though we follow up, sometimes it's longer than others. Sometimes we send them in and 30 days later they're all done, and then sometimes we send it in and then it's a period of 4 or 5 months. You know, we are not the important high on their totem pole to have things done. If there's a storm or anything else, they're not going out and touching what we do. So sometimes it may be something like that. And then other times, property is constantly being conveyed. And so we're having to actually do some things there. So rescinding notices. There are a lot of things that happen during that period. If we miss something, if we go back, because when it comes to a structure, we try to make sure that we follow every procedure and we notify every owner, even if we have to come back 5 or 6 times because of a tax owner to send that first notice.
I'd like to mention also real quickly, for those council members, again, I know this is a tool that I use from time to time, and for whatever reason my computer's being a little slow about it right now, but I do want to make sure everybody knows that on the city website you can go to property standards, and then when you get to the property standards page, there is a tab that says property standards violations. And there you can enter your council district and you can enter a date range. It can go back as far as you want to, up to last week, you know, and it will tell you all of the properties that have been cited and at what stage of the citation they are. So you can go and find out when somebody calls you and has a property standards question or complaint about their property. You can generally, even without calling property standards, look it up to see you know, what the status of it is, because like Dorothy said, a lot of these things, you know, some move through real fast and some take forever, and you know, there's no easy way to figure that out without looking into it. But that tool is available, so I just want to make sure everybody knows that that's there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But my final 2 questions, and what I was trying to ascertain here was that, so when we see a property that's been in the system 3, 4, 5 years, it's not always necessarily the fault of property standards.
Correct.
Okay, it just happens. So my last question is, using the protocol, what after the board hears and then it's appealed to us, what percentage of cases are come to us from the board, and those that are resolved on that level? Can you?
We had very few to come before you. I think
very few. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think we did over 100 with Property Standards Board, and I think there was less than 20 that came over here.
Okay.
But they have been continuing, and sometimes what has happened is a constituent may call their councilman, and you know, things happen. But from Property Standards Boards to here, there's been less. I think it was maybe 17.
Okay, so some of the issues that we took up here is not
Are
necessarily.
continuing.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily precedents of what's going on system-wide.
No, sir.
Okay, that's what I want to
No,
know. Thank
sir.
you.
Yes.
I think Councilman Bradford brings up a good point in the timeline and how long some of these cases go. And I just wanted to add one thing to that. It is good to hear that we only get a small number of the cases, that the Property Standards Board is able to deal with those. I think if, for all of us up here, new council members and those who have been here for 4 years, if you go back and look at the history of some of these cases, you'll see that one of the other things that plays into that is, from time to time, sympathy of the council and postponement after postponement, and there's absolutely nothing going on at that property. And I think that's something, that's a hard decision that we have to make sometime, but that's something that the council needs to look at as well, is if we've postponed or given 90 days for 18 months, are we doing anything to actually help that in the neighborhood? And then the final thing is, I heard this gentleman say, I've worked on the fence, I worked on the water line. That's another issue many times, where a property owner comes in and they're doing either something inside the house, or they're doing something that's completely unrelated to property standards and why they've been cited to begin with. Because property standards is looking at paint, windows, doors. Is there a foundation for the house? And while it may be easy to go and do things like water lines and all that, you still have an uninhabitable structure that does not meet our codes and ordinances. And I think we've got to do. It's easy to play what I think I heard and what I didn't hear, but we've got to, by the time people get up before us, be sure that we're saying, this is exactly what you've got to do. And I think Ms. Farnell and Mr. Green and their staff do that. But we're going to have property owners come up and tell us, oh, I've never heard about any of this before. And we've just got to stick to our guns. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you. And I don't have any more requests to speak on this. So seeing none, we are at, we've got no ABO appeals, we've got no, and y'all can take your seats now, thank you, sorry.
And please, talk to this gentleman, okay? Thank you.
There are no MPC or zoning appeals today. Are there any other appeals? Anybody? I don't believe so. I don't have any taxi or SOB appeals. Are there any reports from officers, boards, and committees?
I will defer mine until tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming Councilman Fleury will give some tomorrow if he wants to, or today, but I will just announce that we do have an infrastructure meeting tomorrow at 1:30.
Great. And I think I sort of, in process of talking about some of the things that were on our agenda today, already sort of gave an update on some of the discussions we had at the Riverfront Committee meeting, but I'd be happy to expound on this tomorrow if anybody would like. It looks like we don't have a clerk's report today, so if nothing else, this meeting's adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, guys, I know that was a bit long, but we had a lot on the agenda to get through, so I think that was worth it.